As he prepared incense for his deceased wife, a special card on the ground caught his attention. Just as he was confused, his wife's grave unexpectedly exploded. Fortunately, he was not seriously injured, but his professional instinct made him decide to leave this dangerous place immediately. As he ran to the stone bridge, several bullets whizzed past him. At that moment, a car charged towards him, and a motorcycle rider also appeared ahead. Realizing he was sandwiched between the two, he jumped from several hundred meters high. He landed safely below, surprising the man with the poison eye. But Bond had no courage to stay. He ran through the rocky cave to escape, and upon reaching the exit, saw the poison eye coming out on a motorcycle. Bond made a decision, attacked him, and knocked him off the bike. Before he could react, Bond punched him in the face and tightened a rope around his neck. Unexpectedly, before he could question further, the poison eye revealed everything. Yet unexpectedly, bullets grazed around him, and Sukuyana at the edge of the stone. Bond, with his incredible driving skills, drove along the outer wall, soared into the air, and landed safely in the plaza. Before long, he returned to the hotel, furious, to confront her and question why she exposed his actions. Madeleine, looking bewildered, hurriedly explained that she had done nothing. Concluding he couldn't extract a reason, he moved her forward, but as soon as they left the hotel, they were blocked by enemies, forcing him to turn the car around and drive like mad. At that moment, Madeleine's phone suddenly rang, and Bond grabbed the phone. "It's me, Blofeld. Your beloved father will be very proud of you, though you may not understand it." Madeleine tried to explain that she wasn't betraying him, but doubts arose in Bond's mind. Seeing a lookout ahead, he hurriedly began the task of dropping a mini-bomb on the ground. Madeleine didn't want to be mistreated, but before she could finish speaking, a car crashed in. Immediately after, cars gathered from all directions, blocking the road, and soon after, bullets began to fly in unison. However, Bond remained calm. This was because his car was equipped with level 3 bulletproof glass, so it was not significantly affected. However, his girlfriend was very scared. Eventually, the glass would be penetrated. She pleaded with Bond to think of a countermeasure quickly, and looking into her eyes, Bond's heart softened. The sports car's headlights suddenly transformed into machine guns. He pressed the accelerator, firing in all directions, and then emitted smoke from the back of the car, using the cover of impaired visibility to accelerate and burst out. They didn't wait long. They arrived at the station where Bond helped her onto the train, and Madeleine asked him when they would meet again. "No, she will never see me again, but you may not know this. Madeleine is now pregnant with your child." Thus, they parted ways, and when they reunited, everything had changed. 5 years had passed in an instant. Bond was enjoying a self-sufficient retirement, but today, upon returning from sea fishing, he noticed something was off. He found cigarette butts scattered across the sofa, and there were finished cigars in the house. Following his professional instinct, he took the car keys. Bond drove his pickup truck to lure out the enemy, and sure enough, a sedan appeared right behind him, pursuing him. As he turned the corner, he slammed on the brakes to stop the car. Out came his close friend, Felix Leiter and Paloma, who claimed to be his fan. Felix suggested finding a quiet place to discuss the details, but unexpectedly, Bond took them to a nearby bar. In fact, 3 days ago, a Spectre group raided MI6's secret laboratory. They kidnapped a key scientist and killed all the other scientists. This incident left M extremely anxious, because they are researching nanoweapons. Simply by incorporating the enemy's DNA into the weapon, they can kill unseen. Now that the weapon has fallen into Spectre's hands, it will undoubtedly have a serious impact on the world. 2 days ago, they discovered through facial recognition that the scientist was in Cuba, and that Spectre had gathered there as well. Clearly, there is a major conspiracy, and M dispatched the new 007 on a mission. However, Felix believed that the person was still too young and needed to have their capability to work verified. Therefore, he called Bond again in an attempt to save the crisis. Bond did not agree right away and realized that his car had broken down on his way back to England. Just then, a black woman appeared by chance. She offered to give Bond a ride partway. This woman is the new 007 agent, Nomi. As Felix anticipated, her working ability was not that outstanding. After thinking it over for a night, Bond agreed to join Felix in this plan. Upon arriving in Cuba, Bond saw that Nomi had also landed with him. The two greeted each other with smiles and went in different directions. The first person Bond should look for is the new generation Bond girl, Ana de Armas. If I'm not mistaken, it's Ana. This woman almost got Bond killed on her first mission. Before Bond could react, she dragged him into the room and started removing his clothes. Bond was a bit confused and said that goodwill was needed. She said that and took out the tools for the mission. When he reappeared, Bond looked completely different. Soon, Ana took a radio out from her lipstick and pushed it into Bond's ear. "That way, I can hear your voice." Then they headed together to the Spectre party. However, as soon as they entered, several bald men detected Bond's position through the fake eye of James Bond. Before Bond could react, the poison eye pressed the remote control switch. Suddenly, white mist erupted from the ceiling. As everyone watched with great interest, in the next moment, someone collapsed one after another onto the carpet. The scene soon fell into chaos. Before Bond entered the party, Spectre was preparing to use Bond as a test subject for the nanoweapon's power. However, Dr. Oberchev was very clever. Not only did he replace Bond's data, but he also incorporated the DNA of Spectre members into the arsenal. The poison eye was completely unaware and even lent a hand, ultimately causing this absurd situation. It was effective, killing only Spectre operatives. At that moment, the doctor looked at the hole beside him and hurriedly asked if she was there to protect him. Seeing her expression, he realized something was wrong and immediately fled. At that moment, Spectre reinforcements also arrived and shot several people. Ana took the doctor away first while Bond stayed behind to assist. However, at that moment, the roof suddenly collapsed. A man in black grabbed the doctor and started climbing the rope. The man was Nomi. After taking care of a few, Bond quickly handed the submachine gun to Ana and pursued. Just as Bond attempted to chase, a group of Spectre operatives surged forward. They must work together to deal with it. Meanwhile, downstairs, Ana is shooting all around with a submachine gun. When she ran out of bullets, she quietly circled behind and started close combat. Bond relied on his superhuman strength to blow the enemies all the way to the first floor. Ana was a bit surprised by this scene. Afterwards, she calmly got up and didn't forget to hold a glass with Bond. He then picked up the submachine gun from the ground and continued his attack on Spectre. Ana searched for the car as requested. After discovering that the doctor was hiding on the second floor, she stepped on the gas and charged forward. A loud explosion was heard, and the doctor and the stretcher fell to the first floor. Thus, the two recaptured the doctor and vanished from the city. "I'll have to borrow your plane later. This is a shortcut. Goodbye when you arrive at my station." Ana's mission ends here. The two parted ways, and Bond piloted Nomi's plane to join Felix with the doctor. He asked the doctor what happened at the party, but he stammered and did not answer. Following the doctor's gaze, they saw Paloma suddenly draw her gun. During the struggle with him, Felix unfortunately got shot. Bond immediately jumped into the fight with Paloma. It seemed that Paloma was also an enemy spy. The two fought for a while, but the outcome was inconclusive. Unexpectedly, at that moment, the doctor kicked a gun to Paloma's feet. In the chaos, Bond decided to hide in the battle room below, but the enemy closed the steel door on him. Shortly after, he planted a bomb on the squad. With a loud explosion, seawater surged into the battle room like a wild beast. Paloma told Bond that it was true he was a fan. Felix was groaning from a fatal wound. "Let's go. Forgive me, it wouldn't be so bad to die by your side." Watching a friend be lost like this filled Bond with deep regret, but he felt powerless. He must take revenge, but first, he needs to get away from here. Fortunately, the war room wasn't very fortified due to the explosion. Finally, Bond was able to turn the valve and get outside. After drifting in the waters of the UK, Bond stumbled upon a passing yacht. Upon returning to London, Bond went to retrieve his precious Aston Martin and headed to MI6 headquarters. He sought out to meet with Blofeld, the leader of Spectre, asking from afar how to kill people. However, Blofeld simply refused since he was imprisoned in Belmarsh prison. Even from prison, he can still host Spectre meetings. "I am responsible not to you, but to my country. Even though Felix is dead, you're still there drinking. If you have nothing to contribute, you have no purpose. Bond, you can go now." Ultimately, the two parted ways after their debate. As Bond was getting ready to take the elevator, he furiously tossed his ID badge into the trash. The secretary suddenly pulled him aside and introduced him to a programming expert. Through the USB provided by Bond, Q uncovered a hidden database containing a large volume of materials here. This is the missing part, related to experiments, etc. In addition to Spectre's jealousy data, it also includes stolen genetic data from around the world. If the terrorists launch an attack, it would mean the end of humanity. This is truly terrifying. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, she allowed Bond to meet Blofeld in Belmarsh prison to find the true mastermind. However, Blofeld, being suspicious by nature, agreed to speak only with his psychologist. What surprised Bond was that the psychologist was Madeleine Swan. She was the girlfriend he had broken up with 5 years ago. The two met again in a very awkward situation. However, Bond had to provide information for Blofeld to start speaking. However, when Bond left, Madeleine's mood became very tense. In the end, she ignored Bond's advice. She hurriedly left the scene, and Bond had no choice but to interrogate Blofeld alone. Unexpectedly, he was unable to extract any results, and he was outmaneuvered by him. She still loves you, did you know? In fact, she was ambushed when Bond visited his wife's grave 5 years ago. It was not Madeleine who revealed it. It was Blofeld himself who planned the assassination. While he could not kill Bond, he succeeded in separating Bond and Madeleine. Madeleine did nothing. It's all my fault. So he discarded her for me. He is always very sensitive. Hearing this, Bond, filled with rage, strangled Blofeld but ultimately regained his composure. However, when his colleague walked in, they found Blofeld dead. Tests revealed that Bond's palm contained nano-robots. Since it contained data on Blofeld's jealousy, mere contact would result in Blofeld dying on the spot. After all, just hours earlier, Lucifer Safin had visited Madeleine, threatening words for her daughter's life, demanded that she carry the nano-weapon for self-defense, leaving her no choice but to comply the moment she contacted Bond. The weapon successfully infiltrated his body. Consumed by guilt, Bond visited Madeleine's residence, eager to know who poisoned her, coming to me armed. No, you have to tell me who poisoned you. He told him that you haven't betrayed him. Bond apologized for what happened 5 years ago. After a casual conversation, the two old flames reignited their romance. Just as they were preparing to take the next step, a girl suddenly appeared before Bond. The girl was Matilde, the daughter of Madeleine and Bond. After leaving that year, Madeleine quietly gave birth and bore the responsibility of parenthood alone. Afterwards, Madeleine took Bond to a secret room. After all, her father was also a member of Spectre. He then received orders from Blofeld to kill the Safin family. However, Safin survived by chance and wants to take revenge on Spectre. According to the documents, Safin is currently on an island contested between Japan and Russia. Bond immediately requested an investigation and found suspicious activity occurring there via satellite. After identifying the target, Bond requested that headquarters dispatch an aircraft. He initially planned to take Madeleine and his daughter to a different location. He was supposed to head to the island to take down Safin afterward, but before the plane arrived, Bond noticed that Safin's men were closing in. Safin was indeed orchestrating a large-scale operation, with not only helicopters but also numerous vehicles converging. Bond was cornered at the riverbank. Unable to escape, he slammed the accelerator and drove into the jungle, preparing to counterattack. He then took his wife and daughter to a stone house and opened fire in succession towards the deep forest to draw in the enemy. Then, the sound of engines echoed immediately. Bond quickly loaded his weapon, fired a shot at the pursuing vehicle, and shot several more. Then he began pulling wires from inside the car to set a trap. Before long, an unfortunate man rushed toward him and was instantly decapitated. At that moment, Paloma rushed to the scene with her team and charged toward Bond in her car. Shortly after, Paloma got out of the car and pleaded with Bond to save her life, but thinking of Felix's death, she feared Bond could never forgive her. He knocked the car over, crushing Paloma, but when Bond returned to the stone house, it was empty. In the end, he could only watch as Safin kidnapped his wife and child, and Bond felt his heart burn with panic. At this moment, Nomi arrived late, and Bond hurriedly jumped in the car and headed to the airport, taking off for the island on a transport plane. Afterwards, Q handed Bond an electronic pistol watch, explaining that it could interrupt the electrical circuit just by getting close. Next, Q handed Nomi a spatial mapping device and fitted both of them with location tracking devices. At the same time, Safin also received the alert. Based on his knowledge of Bond, he knew that Bond would come to the island to save people without fail. Therefore, he used the card of personally taking Madeleine away to distract the boss. Elsewhere, Bond and Nomi were also preparing for the two stealth naval aircraft to arrive on the island due to its special geographical location. They then dived into the sea to approach the west coast of the island. Following Q's instructions, Bond used his watch to cut the power to the enemy. Nomi set up the terrain measurement device, assisting Q in building the underground infrastructure model to facilitate their actions. The two quickly eliminated all the guards outside. They then entered the laboratory, where Dr. Obrishev tried to press the alarm button, but Bond intervened in time to stop it. The two began planting bombs in the laboratory. Through the computer data, Bond discovered that the enemy was producing large-scale nanotechnology and receiving numerous orders from around the world. However, at that moment, Safin informed Bond over the speaker to come to him to discuss terms. He was thinking about his daughter in the hands of the enemy. Bond reluctantly entered the venue, laid down all his weapons on the ground, and watched as Safin used his daughter to threaten him. He pretended to surrender, but in reality, he secretly retrieved a weapon and began to fight back. However, unexpectedly, Safin pressed a switch to escape through a secret passage. At the same time, the hunters were also heading towards the island. Safin didn't want to waste any more time, so he discarded Madeleine to one side, indifferent to her fate. However, Madeleine was very clever, so she chose to go back the old way, as the hunters were about to arrive. On the other side, Madeleine was also about to be forced to drink poisoned tea by the enemy, but she deliberately provoked the man with the poison eye. Later, when he let his guard down, she splashed the cup of tea in the man's face. She then disarmed him, quickly fled, and locked the iron door behind her. Eventually, she reunited with Bond and fortunately found their daughter, bringing the family back together. However, they lacked the courage to stay, and Bond met with Nomi, asking her to take his wife and child to safety. After a brief farewell, Bond returned to the base to pursue Safin. Shortly after, Bond called Q, demanding missiles to destroy the base before Safin made the exchange. However, the base was quite stubborn, requiring the skylight to be opened for complete destruction. Following Q's instructions, Bond began to unleash all of his firepower. He first destroyed the laboratory, and then charged into the control room. Despite being hindered by numerous mercenaries, Bond reached the control room safely due to his formidable combat abilities. Ultimately, he was able to open the skylight, revealing the base, and an order was given to launch missiles under great pressure. As each missile flew toward Bond, he had only 9 minutes to escape, but as he rushed down the stairs, he noticed the skylight cover beginning to close. He rushed outside but found Safin hiding in the shadows, firing repeatedly. Bond, unfortunately, received a bullet and fell to the ground. Villains often reveal much before dying, and Safin was no exception. Bond seized the opportunity to push him down and broke his arm. However, as Bond tried to leave, Safin told him that during their earlier fight, the nanobots had adhered to his face, and the genetic samples belonged to his wife and child. The nanobots cannot be removed, meaning Bond only needs to come into contact with them. The nanobots will take the lives of Madeleine and his daughter. For Bond, this is equivalent to taking away the meaning of his life. Bond fired his handgun in quick succession at Safin. After that, he dragged his tired body back to the cockpit, opened the skylight, and contacted Madeleine. He told her he was infected with nanobots. The two, who parted ways due to a misunderstanding, reunited and had a daughter. It was supposed to end perfectly, but before dying, he expressed his love for Madeleine and said he had never regretted anything in his life. As the missile approaches, 007, played by Daniel Craig, meets a tragic end. The movie ends here. The value of the film lies in its fame, and the value of the movie review lies in the impressions shared. Today's story concludes here. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment below on what you thought of this movie.